Good morning, everybody. Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin State Director Megan Novak is our very special guest today, Thursday, August 24th, 2023. We have a lot to get to this morning, including AFP's Prosperity is Possible bus tour, which I think you guys just made a stop right here in Washburn County up in Minong earlier this week. And of course, the GOP debate was last night, so I can't wait to kind of get some of your takeaways from that. But first, I want to say thank you to some of our recent guests, including Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Congressman Tom Tiffany, Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, and Becky Hansen from Big Rock Creek was Kirk's guest on the Kirk Anderson Show. You can watch a recording of those live shows and all of our previous shows on our website at DrydenWire.com, right here on Facebook, or just go to our YouTube channel, just youtube.com/DrydenWire. Looking ahead, next Tuesday, of course, Sheriff Fitzgerald will be back joining me for our weekly Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy show. And 1 week from today, August 31st, Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn will be joining us as he does on the last Thursday of every month. But today, we are chatting with Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin State Director Megan Novak. Megan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Ben. I am wonderful. A little tired, but wonderful.
Tired. So I'm assuming you were up watching the debate.
I was. We were up late. We had a big watch party down here in Milwaukee, just about a mile from where the debate took place. So
Oh,
that was awesome, and we've been all over the state all week. So it's been a good week.
yeah, and that's what we really want to get to. Watching Good Morning, Representative Gate Magnifici.
Good
So,
morning.
so we have a lot to get to this morning. Usually when we have a first-time guest on, and when we had this set up weeks and weeks ago. It's really to spend 45 minutes to get to know you. It's like a therapy session. Who's Megan Novak? Right? And some people like it, some people don't. I don't care. But unbeknownst to me, there's a whole bunch of things going on this week. So either good or bad, depending on how you look at it, we're going to have to take 45 minutes of getting to know Megan, pack it down to like 10 minutes. So then we can get to all the other topics.
That's perfect. 10 minutes is plenty to get to know me.
I love it. All right, so why don't we start there? Well, first, for people who don't know AFP, Americans for Prosperity, what is that?
Americans for Prosperity is, I would argue, the best grassroots organization in Wisconsin and in the country. So we have a team here in our state, as well as a presence in all 50 states, where we really work to advocate for breaking down the barriers government puts up that prevents all of us from being able to live out our American dream, whatever that American dream might be. So we spend a lot of time educating voters and activists on policies and how those policies and what government is doing impact their daily lives. And then we try and mobilize them to make a difference in their community and in electoral races.
Give me an example to break down those barriers. What's an example of something like that?
One of the coolest things that we've worked on that maybe a lot of people don't know about is simple licensing reform. So when you looked previously at the barbershop license, so if you were a barber and you wanted to open and manage your own barbershop, you then had to get a second license that was just a barbershop manager license. And it was all these additional hours of training and schooling that had nothing to do with the actual ability to cut hair and have customers coming in and out. So we were able to eliminate that license and say that's completely unnecessary. It's keeping people from actually owning their own business and living out that dream of being an entrepreneur and a small business owner. So that's a smaller one, but a very impactful one for a lot of people
So
who now can own their
where
own
does
business.
what does AFP do? So you see, identify the problem, fix it. So what role do you then play in that?
I
So you,
wish I wish it was that easy of
uh,
identify then fix. But we so it's a huge process really that, it starts with we're talking to people, and a lot of times it's people that we're talking to on the doors or on the phones who identify a problem for us. And then we can get some answers to, like, was that a government problem or is that something else? If it's a government problem, then we can go work with legislators that we have relationships with and say, hey, check this problem out. Like, let's draft a bill and start working on this to fix it. And then we go into communities and we educate people on what is the problem and here's the solution we're offering. can you help us get it across the finish line?
I see.
And that help can come from people coming to the Capitol to testify, calling their own legislator, talking to people in their neighborhood about the problem, because we need that like groundswell of support to get anything across the finish line.
Does AFP get into social issues, those types of things, or you kind of steer clear of that stuff?
We are really focused mostly on economic issues.
Got it.
That's kind of our bread and butter, and that extends from, your traditional taxes and spending to, I bucket this all under economic, to that licensing reform I mentioned, to some of the healthcare stuff, because healthcare really is an economic issue.
Yeah.
But that's where we focus a lot of our time, as well as education.
For the people who don't like, there's always haters in the world, or people who don't support something, which is perfectly fine. For the people that see AFP, they go to your website or they're familiar with it in whatever way, that don't like AFP, what's usually the pushback? What's the thing that you hear that says, "Oh, you're AFP"? Well, what's that? What is usually the first thing that comes out of their mouth from a negative standpoint? I don't want to focus on negative, just compare and contrast.
Yeah. I think there's two different negatives that we get. There's the online keyboard warrior negativity, and they're pretty nasty. I won't even repeat some of the stuff they say. But actual everyday people that we go out and talk to that disagree with us, most of them are super, super respectful and just say like, hey, like, I don't think that what you're fighting for is going to work for America. And like, here's what I think. And that's awesome.
Fun.
I love it. I love diverse viewpoints. I love having conversations with people who disagree with me. I think it's the most rewarding thing ever, because it helps me feel more convicted in what I believe and strengthen my arguments. Because if you're only talking to people who agree with you, you're never going to be able to argue a point effectively.
So
you have to talk to people who disagree with you.
Speaking of me, as in you, I've had your predecessor, Eric Bott. He's been on the show a couple of times. I think last year. I think both times were last year. I think he's still with AFP, I believe. Now he's just in a larger role or something else.
Yeah.
And I knew the kind of the number two. I think it was Annette Olson, and she's not there. So I got to know AFP a little bit over the last couple of years, but now there's just been some changes. People are going to different spots and locations and whatever. So you're there now. I believe you had sent your bio yesterday and put up this announcement that you've been there, the state director, for I don't know how many months. It was April, I think. So relatively new.
Yes.
So let's go back just a little bit. How long have you been with AFP? And then we'll lead up to how are you in this role? Did you like draw the short straw? Like, or what? So like, was this something you aspired to? So what's your history with AFP?
Absolutely. So I came to AFP after working for Governor Scott Walker and working on his policy team. And then when he lost in 2018, I like to say AFP adopted me and gave me a home, because I was out of a job after the governor lost. And so I started as legislative director in January of 2019 and was in that role for just over 4 years until April of this year. And just had the opportunity to work pretty exclusively on the policy and lobbying, talking to legislators side of things, which was awesome. It was super rewarding. I learned a lot. It was incredible. And then when Eric moved into the new role late last year, early this year, just had a conversation and had a really cool opportunity to expand my skill set and try and fill some pretty big shoes, because Eric was an awesome state director. So I'm trying.
Well, it's only been 4 months, but so far, you liking it? I mean, obviously, we're doing a live show. You can't say that you don't. So that's probably a stupid question. But how about, let me ask you a different question. If Megan Novak, August 24th, today, could go back and tell Megan Novak March 31st, one thing, what would it be?
It's okay to screw up, because it means you're trying. It means you're trying new things, and as long as you learn from screwing up, it's good.
Yeah. Hopefully not too much. But the first 4 months, I mean, my goodness. So is there something, and we'll kind of put a bow on this with this last question. Is there something that, we see a sheriff or retires and another sheriff comes in and it's like, you know what? He was great, but I'm going to do a lot of the similar things, but I'm going to put my stamp on it. So it's just kind of taking what the person did before you and then growing that a little bit further. But, your stamp. What's yours? So this isn't well, Eric really sucked at doing this. It's not that. Hopefully he's watching. That'd be great.
I hope
but
so.
what's the stamp that you want to put on? What's the one thing that I think we could really start focusing more on this? What is that? So like a year from now, hey, I'm so proud that we were able to do this because we weren't before.
This is going to sound really cheesy. And I know it's going to sound cheesy, but it is incredibly sincere. Our first staff meeting that we had after I took over as state director, our theme was Lilo and Stitch. And for those of you who have ever seen the movie Lilo and Stitch, the whole point of it is Ohana, because Ohana means family and nobody gets left behind. And that's how I view the AFP Wisconsin team. They're my work family. And I care for and love all of them very deeply and want all of them to really grow into the best possible selves.
Aww.
And so like, that's been my focus. I know it's cheesy, but
it's actually kind of awesome.
They're my Ohana.
Aww.
So we gave everyone a little Lilo and Stitch or Lilo keychain. No, Stitch. Stitch is the alien. We gave them a little Stitch keychain at the end of the meeting, just as a reminder of we're a family and we're through the tough times together and we can celebrate the good times together.
And was it received well? Or, you heard mumbling afterwards? That was crazy. What in the world?
I think people liked it, but
Okay.
Maybe they just didn't want to tell me it was done.
You are a state director after all. All right. So we have a lot to get to. The two main things is the GOP debate was last night and your recent or AFP's recent Prosperity is Possible bus tour. We'll get to all of that in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Action surveys and in conversations with patients, they appreciate the fact that staff got to know them. Staff really took their preferences into account, and they just feel grateful that they are being cared for as a person.
To learn more about our services, visit spoonerhealth.com.
All right, so which one do you want to start with? The GOP debate or the bus tour? Those are only two things I'd written down. I always like to have a couple of topics, but again, we could talk about anything that you would like to talk about. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with the bus tour. Because
Okay.
that started on Monday. So
Yeah,
we'll
and
go
we
in
had
chronological order.
Yeah, and you've been around. There's the bus right there, Prosperity is Possible 2023 tour. You can find out more there on the website, which is right on the bus. That's awesome. ProsperityIsPossible.com. So what is this?
Well, Prosperity is Possible is our policy solutions to our failing and struggling economy right now. So we have been going around in this bus. I have not been in the bus, but we've got a team that's been driving this bus all around the country. They started off and kicked off in West Virginia, and then they were in Ohio and Pennsylvania.
I thought this was just Wisconsin.
No. They're here this whole week, and then they're taking the bus out to Montana and Nevada and Arizona. Yeah, they're putting a lot of miles on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go on that bus either.
No, right? That's
just kidding.
Yikes. But the whole point is we're talking about inflation because it's hard on so many of us right now, how much things are increasing in price, continuing to increase in the compounding inflation over the last couple of years. I mean, I know the inflation rate itself has decreased a little bit in the last couple of months, but when you're putting that on month after month of 7-8% inflation, it's really hard. And so we're trying to educate people on the policies, what we think are the solutions, some of those being decreasing government spending, unleashing American energy so that we have in-country energy sources to help drive down the costs of our utility bills and at the fuel pump. I don't know about you, Ben, but my utility bill is through the roof anymore. I mean, It is insane how much, and they're looking at more rate increases this fall. I don't know if you knew that. A lot of the energy providers filed for additional rate increases. So they're going to go up again. Yeah.
Good night. I mean, okay. So you go on this bus.
Not to put a damper on this, but we're getting more utility rate increases.
Wow, thanks a lot for that one.
You're welcome.
So the bus is going around and it's talking to people about these things. So how does that work? What does it look like? A bus just randomly stops into a city? Do you kind of schedule this ahead of time? I know you were just up in Minong where the bus was. I'm not sure if you went to that one. No, I think you did.
I did.
You were actually at the one right here in Washburn County in Minong. So how does that work? You schedule it and you just park a bus somewhere and everyone comes up to the bus? Where do you go? What do you do?
Basically, so everywhere we go, we do a little bit different. But we were up in Minong on Monday morning at 9 a.m. And so I drove up from Jefferson County, where I live, down here in southern Wisconsin, to get to Minong by 9 a.m. So that was an early morning.
Yeah.
But and up in Minong, we really wanted to focus on the increase in grocery prices because that's just such, I mean, when you go to your weekly grocery shopping or bi-weekly or whatever you do, like it's nuts. So we went to Henson's Country Foods up in Minong. For any of you, your audience who's from Minong has probably shopped there from the area. It's a wonderful little store. I really loved it. And we camped out outside and we worked with them to make sure that, of course, the business was cool with us being there. And we handed out $25 gift cards to anyone who walked in who wanted to take one. And we did that because, like I said, it's hard right now, and most people's weekly bill has probably gone up more than $25. But we wanted to just provide a little relief from the inflation, and then we just hand out. We had cards that showed the price of eggs has gone up 82%. How much is chicken and milk? Those basics. How much have those increased in prices? And then they get a gift card, and if they want to sit and talk with us for 5-10 minutes, some people did and told their stories, and some people took the gift card and went into the store and got their groceries. So I mean, it was really, really helpful and cool to just be able to give people a little relief. I mean, just the joy in people's faces was like, it's burned into my memory.
Well, and they, didn't expect it. So that's, also wonderful. Was it received? How many of those gift cards did you end up giving away?
100.
What? Holy
yeah.
cow. And everyone was like, hey, this is wonderful. Thank you. And listen, I mean, everyone's going to take free stuff. I'm sure nobody gave stuff back. It's like, UFP, I don't like you guys.
A couple people who actually said, hey, appreciate it, but there's people who need it more. So give it to the next person, which is so wonderful. I know. People are good.
Especially up here in rural northwest Wisconsin. Not probably down in Jefferson County, but up here. Just saying. I mean, this is like the greatest place in the whole world. Is this world is this right up here, man? It's so awesome.
It is.
Was there any big takeaway from this? You've gone to a few of these, including the one just here at Minong on Monday. Are there moments where there are things that kind of hit you, or yes, we're giving a $25 gift card. Also, we want to talk to you about some things. If you want to hear, or if you have any questions, let us know. But it's not like you have to. You get your gift card if you sit down and listen to us for 20 minutes. It's, have questions, great. Tell you about a few things if you want to know. Otherwise, have fun. Is there anything that stood out to you or stands out to you where it's you want to gather information and get some message across, but is there any like pulling on your heartstring type stories?
There were 2 women that I talked to up there, and these are just we had a team of 5 or 6 people who were up there. So these are just 2 of the women that I talked to. One of them, an older woman who recently retired, talking to her, I gave her the gift card, and she told me that she was going to buy herself a Hershey chocolate bar this week. And she has not bought herself a treat in 3 years because of how much groceries have increased. And she was so excited to be able to buy herself a little treat this week because we were able to help her out with her grocery bill. That's just a little Hershey bar, and that it made her day. And I talked to another woman who, longtime Minong resident, her husband just got out of the hospital, seems to be doing okay, which is wonderful. But they also have a young grandbaby that they're helping support right now. And she said that this week she didn't have to choose between groceries and diapers.
Oh, all right. Are you making all this up?
And that's the economy right now.
Right.
No, I couldn't make this up if I tried. People are struggling. And, what frustrates me the most is that you hear if you watch the national media or pay attention to some of the politicians out there, like especially President Biden, he's out there saying everything's great, the economy's wonderful, what I'm doing is working, and I want to put all of these people and some of these journalists on our bus and have them go to Minong, Wisconsin, and talk to those women that I talked to, and then I want to take them. Yesterday morning, we were on the north side of Milwaukee giving away free gas because the price of gas is also increasing, and the same kind of stories coming out of Milwaukee. And I want to take them to these events and show them, like, things aren't working right now. People are struggling. What we're doing isn't a solution. We have to fix something. But
Well, when I
apparently
hear
they're
that
not
too,
interested.
economy's doing great, and I'm not banging on Biden. This could be any president, Republican, I don't care. But when I hear those things, I always wonder. Like right now, it's not going well, or actually, the economy's going wonderfully well, and I'm wondering for who or for whom, because I don't know. Like you just said, our since May of 2020 or maybe it's 2021, our weekly bill for our family about what my wife Jerusha, she every week goes to local Economart. I have to bring up Economart; they're an advertiser. But goes there, and it was like $150 ish every week for family of four, and now it's around $250. That's a big uptick there. My daughter Grace and her husband and her two kids, my grandkids, same thing, family of four. She said it was 125 ish to 150 ish, and now she's about 225. So it's okay. That's gone up, and you talked about utility bills and gas, and everything is up higher. And the rate of people's increase in their pay isn't, matching that. It is what it is. I'm not banging on, everybody should get raises. But like, why is the economy going so well when I look around and maybe I just live in the wrong part of the state because we are relatively poor, not impoverished, but relatively poor communities here in rural northwest Wisconsin. I look around and people are barely getting by sometimes. Like, how do they determine the economy is doing great when I look around and I don't see it? So how do they determine that?
I don't know. They're not talking to real people. I know that much. Because it's not just northern Wisconsin. It's not just Milwaukee. We have a staff in basically every corner of the state: Platteville, Green Bay, Waukesha, Minong, Eau Claire, and everywhere in between. And we talk to voters every day in and day out. And that, like, no one is saying on the door, the economy is great, we should keep doing what we're doing. We have not heard that a single time. There's some people who say, yeah, things are more expensive, but like we're doing good. We're still okay, which is great. I'm very happy for them. But most people are saying, yeah, we're cutting back. We're buying off brand instead of name brand stuff at the grocery store to save a little bit. Like that's probably the most common that we hear. But people are making changes to their lifestyle. And I think because it's been 3 years or almost 3 years of this, like maybe we just think it's normal now. And so people aren't talking about it as much and how much they're struggling. Because it's not an easy thing to talk about either. If you're, when you're struggling to pay the grocery bill or utility bill, but we should talk about the real impacts and how much.
Well, houses,
families.
what houses are going for, and rent, how much that has gone up for average person, vehicles,
Yes.
how much it is. And you're right. It's almost like being normalized now because it's been going on for so long. And I kind of don't think it's ever going to go back to the way it was because, hey, if we can make all this money selling everything for this much, why would we ever go back? I don't know if that's true, and I have no idea. But you're right. It is kind of being normalized. We've all, over the years, we've adjusted. It is what it is.
Yeah. You mentioned cars. I just saw an article this week. I thought it was super interesting. If you're looking to buy a brand new car right now, there is only one option on the market that is under $20,000 for a base model.
Eesh.
And I can't remember what it was. I think it was some sort of Toyota thing.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Wow.
One option. And used car prices aren't exactly cheap either. So what? Your car breaks down and you can't fix it. What are you supposed to do?
Call AFP.
Yes, everyone call AFP.
Yeah. So let's move. Oh, sorry. So is it finished now in Wisconsin? The Prosperity is Possible bus tour. Is it over in Wisconsin? I think you said they're heading to Montana soon.
They're heading to Montana soon, but we are going to be in Sheboygan this afternoon. We're having a big brat fest because their brat days was canceled in Sheboygan. So we're hosting our own. We're going to have free food, free drinks. And we've got Senator Johnson and Congressman Grothman coming to meet and talk to people, which is going to be amazing. And then on Friday, we have our last stop for right now. And that'll be not up for your listeners, but down in Reedsburg.
Everything's up from where you are. Right. And everything's down for us.
In the middle in Reedsburg, kind of near the Dells. We're going to do another grocery store event at Viking Village in Reedsburg. So maybe you have one listener who lives in the Reedsburg area.
I don't even know where it is.
By.
So Yeah, maybe. So we'll end it with this. Renee has a comment. The older people are having to make decisions as to what gets paid, meds or food or basic bills. Yesterday, I had to turn down my inhaler because I used to pay $25. It's now $60. No warning. You couldn't afford it. So yeah, that's another one. And Renee is she's great. She's absolutely a wonderful person. She's comments on our show a lot, on all of our shows. She's just a blessing for us. And that stuff, no kidding, that breaks my heart. That's ridiculous. And 25 for an inhaler. It's a freaking inhaler. I kind of feel like you need that. So there you go. Yeah. Well, we have tons of positive stuff here today, don't we? Wow. But this is why
you're gonna really need that positivity Tuesday next week
to offset this a little bit. All right, so let's move on to the debate last night, GOP debate. I usually go to bed at like 8 o'clock, so I get up at 4, but I stayed up late and I watched maybe half of it, and then I had to turn it off because I can't. It just drives me crazy. They talk about winners and losers. Here's the biggest loser. Anybody watching this, like I don't understand why everybody just isn't always muted, and you get your time to talk and we'll unmute you, and when it's your time is up, we mute you again. Why do they keep letting them go? It just turns into a debacle. And I love entertainment. I love tire fires. I really do. But I can't watch it after a while. And every debate is like this. So I get so frustrated. Like, I'm muting it on my computer. Because I'm like, nope, time's up. I'm a rule follower, right? Time's up. You're supposed to stop talking. That's how it works. And if you're not going to stop, I'm going to stop you. So I'm muting it. And they're still talking. All right. So when you watched it last night, do you watch this as Megan or do you watch this as State Director Megan Novak?
I like to think I watched as Megan because the person who's going into the polling booth in the primary is Megan. So I'm looking for someone that I can get behind. And I think there was a couple bright spots yesterday. They actually talked about policy for a little bit, which I think is wonderful. We should do we should do more of that. Right. They really, I think that first 45 minutes or so was really more policy focused than I've seen in other debates, which I really appreciated as someone who cares deeply about public policy. Clearly that's my job, but also just as a person I do. And then it kind of went off the rails and there was a lot of attacks and it's just everyone wanted to get their 30-second sound clip in. Some people did, some people didn't. But it was interesting.
I talked to someone, I wouldn't say an insider per se, but a politically minded person who's been a part of several campaigns down in your area yesterday afternoon. We were talking about something, and at the end, I said, hey, you're going to watch the debate tonight? And he said, yeah, he's probably going to watch it. He said, he had asked if I think it was good or bad if Trump was going. I'm like, well, as a citizen, I want to see everybody up there if you're qualified, plus if you're the front runner. But honestly, if I was advising him, I'd probably say don't do it. Like, do what you're doing. Go on this other thing. I'm just saying if I was on his campaign team, I would tell him to do the exact same thing. Now, maybe don't skip everyone, but right now, let all these people do it. I don't think it's going to hurt you any. The only downside could be if somebody else kind of, rises up here. And he told me, no kidding, do you know, what is his name? Ramaswamy. No. How do you say his name? Now I'm forgetting. Ramaswamy. There we go. He said, remember that name. Because if you don't know his name today, you're going to know it tomorrow. I guarantee you, he is going to come out. This is going to be like a rocket ship for him for his campaign. He is going to be the next number 2. He'll be taking over Ron DeSantis. I'm like, who is it now? Because I didn't even know who that was. Because I really haven't followed it that much yet. It's pretty early. And he goes, no kidding. Nobody knows who he is right now, but everybody will know who he is tomorrow. And wow, he totally was right on. Because looking at all the news stories this morning, the headlines from all the outlets, liberal-leaning and the conservative website, all saying the same thing, that he really stood out. Did you find that he stood out, and did you like that he stood out, and the reasons why he stood out? Did you like that?
I think he was the loudest. And I think talked the most, which is probably why he stood out to a lot of people. When you have the most, you're dividing a 2-hour debate by 8 people plus the moderators. Like, you're not getting that much time, but Vivek really, he was able to pull out more time. He's kind of like a very characteristically wise, very much like former President Trump. And so I don't if that's what you're attracted to as a voter and that's what you're looking for in a primary candidate, like I don't know what his pathway is then. And that's kind of how, I mean, that's how my brain works. Is like,
What do you
what's
mean
their pathway
pathway?
to a victory? Like where are his voters going to come from?
Oh, sure.
Because I mean, Republican primary voters are kind of in two camps right now.
Yeah.
There are people who are planning to support former President Trump, and there's people who are not. And where does Vivek kind of land in peeling off voters from those two camps when he's kind of running a Trump style campaign and messaging, but he's not Trump. So who are his supporters and voters? That's where I'm curious to kind of and talk through. And I know we had our watch party last night, and we had activists from actually all around the state that came down to Milwaukee to join us and watch. And there's a couple people who really did like Vivek and thought he did a kind of the same thing of like, wow, he really stood out. He was pushing back. He was fighting, and that's, I think some people are looking for a fighter, and they saw that in Vivek last night.
Was there amongst your group, or maybe just you, whichever filter you want to use, was there a candidate that you were, well, nicely done? Not saying you support the person, but was there a candidate that was up last night that you were, I'm really surprised, they actually did really well, or better than what you thought they would do? Was there kind of one of those candidates that stood out to you that you didn't expect to?
There are two that I thought personally I was pleasantly surprised by. The first is North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, and I don't think people knew he was running for president.
I didn't.
I don't think people could have identified him if he walked down the
Nope.
street. And he tore his Achilles heel, his Achilles heel that morning. He spent most of yesterday morning in the hospital, which is crazy. But he had a couple really strong lines on the policy. And I thought for someone who I had zero expectations for, because he's the longest shot or the second longest shot of the long shots at this point. But I thought he had some really good policy points. So I was pleasantly surprised, especially after coming off of tearing or spraining your Achilles heel. Like, that's nuts. I don't think I would have been on that debate stage if I was him. And the other I thought who did really well was Nikki Haley. I thought she did a really good job of being tough and pushing back on the other candidates where needed. And I thought she had some really thoughtful answers. And some of her answers, just from a personality standpoint, she was a lot more sincere sounding, I would say, than some of those canned answers that we heard, where it's just like, okay, well, you've rehearsed that with your team 37 times and I don't buy it. Do you even buy it at this point? Or like, I get really frustrated with that. Like when people are talking about these emotional stories or their own family, and it's just kind of flat, like, and canned sounding. And I think was it Chris Christie who called out Vivek for some canned answers, or maybe it was, I think it was Pence actually called him out on it too. So it was just, I mean, people called it out, but then they used their own canned answers too.
I noticed that, but I think the favorite thing, so my wife was watching it with, I think our kids were even watching part of it, when Haley, she had said, what was the reference? I think to Margaret Thatcher. Something about, men doing something. Yeah. Do you remember that? I wish I should have written it down. Do you remember what she said?
Something like, if you want to, I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, if you want to like hear about plans, talk to a man, but if you want to actually get something done, talk to a woman.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
And there's the only one up there. I'm like, oh, that's so perfect. Yes. Yeah. Was there one candidate that when you were watching this that, again, either you or the people that you were around at this watch party that were going, wow, I'm surprised. I thought they would be doing a lot better. Was there one that, again, the expectation would be they would be, whatever it is, great or pretty good, and then you kind of found, I was kind of surprised. Not necessarily a loser of it, just someone I also expected them to do better, and they didn't. Was there one that stood out to you?
I think a lot of people were really looking to hear more from Senator Tim Scott. I think there's kind of this like underbubbling of like, I might like that guy, but I don't know enough about him to actually say that I'm a supporter. I've heard that from a number of people, like, oh, I've heard him once. I think he's good, but I don't know if I'm ready to support him. So I think a lot of people were hoping to hear from him and really, really have a standout moment from him. And he he just didn't seem to get enough opportunities to talk last night. And when he did, his answers weren't landing as well as some of the other people, I thought, which is unfortunate because I think he does have some really strong policy solutions that he could have offered to the conversation. I think he's a very thoughtful person, but I don't know if it was the setting or what, but I think a lot of people were, I used the word disappointed, but that's probably too strong.
I know what you
Karen,
mean.
I never want to use that word, but like people, I think were hoping to hear more from him and weren't able to. And so they're kind of like, he's kind of going to stay in that, like, I'm interested, but I'm not quite ready to support category for a lot of conservative voters, I think.
Sure. Well, a lot of people got to see these candidates for the first time. You've watched, I'm sure, over the years, just in your personal life and also in your roles with AFP. Was this, do you, comparing it to all the other debates that you've watched, which I'm assuming are numerous, does this move the needle on this one for anyone, you think? Is it just, like, how do you win? If you were just going to tell someone, you were advising all of them, right? They all called you and said, I want your advice. Here's a victory for us, for my campaign. What's a victory? So, and you would say, just do this one thing. What would that one thing be? And does this move the needle if they did it?
I'm going to reverse your question on you. I think,
Yes.
I don't know if anyone necessarily won the debate,
Right.
but no one lost. Like, my advice would be like, don't say anything dumb. Like,
that's what I'm watching for.
Yeah, right. Like that's basic. But people get paid a lot of money to tell candidates that.
Wow.
And there's usually in your debates, you think back, there's been some moments where people have said things that were instantly either taken out of context or were wrong. Like, I'm thinking back to when Mitt Romney said he had binders full of women to look at for his cabinet positions, which was a completely innocent comment of like they're vetting all sorts of people to fill positions and stuff, but the way he delivered it, like, how many years ago was that now? That was 10 years ago, 11 years ago? I still remember it. I think a lot of people do. And I don't think anyone had one of those comments last night. Like, I don't
remember that one.
You know,
I think I have the soundbite for this. Remember him? Who was that guy who had yelled?
Oh, that was.
Yeah, he's like, we're going to go to South Carolina, and we're going to Pennsylvania. Yeah, and that killed his whole campaign. I can't remember his name right now. That was, I don't know, a decade ago. Oh, and it was just not great. It was just, but yeah, you're right. It's not about winning. It's just you can't win the election tonight, but you can certainly lose it.
Yep.
Right? Just
That's
don't
exactly
screw
right.
up.
And I don't think anyone lost. I think a couple people might get a bump in the polls whenever they start doing their polling in the next week or two. I think that would be probably Vivek, probably Nikki Haley, and probably Ron DeSantis. We'd see maybe even Doug Burgum. Maybe people will respect the Achilles heel injury debate appearance, but I think they'll see a slight bump in the polls. But it's also August of 23. We got a long ways to go, so a bump this week doesn't necessarily mean much.
Yeah. Somebody's watching and just sent me a text. Howard Dean is the
Howard Dean. Thank you.
That's the one. And the Dean scream is what he just said. Shoot, I had one more question to kind of to wrap up the debate thing. So the whole Donald Trump thing. Actually, not the whole Donald Trump thing. I want to get into, that's a 45-minute show right there. Just the topic of Donald Trump. But a lot of people that do support and follow him, a number of them, it isn't necessarily the policy and the issues. Those are things that you say that you like to do. Not saying he doesn't have stance in good things on policy or issues or whatever that people would like about his policies and issues. But a lot of the reason isn't because of that. It's just his character, his personality, how he does things. He's almost like the anti-politician, all that stuff. Are you seeing this as a trend that you may have some concern with going forward, where we're getting more into the person and the character, and we're going to be talking less and less about policies and issues? The average American voter, is it still about policy and issues, or is it really about the person? Is that good? Do you see this starting a trend here where a lot of Americans don't really even talk about policies or issues? It's just, the person.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yes, I got one.
It's such a fine line. Like, I mean, the age-old test with politicians that everyone tries to say is like, would a voter sit down and have a beer with them? And that is fundamentally a personality question.
Yeah.
But like you have to then back it up with the good policy. And that's how it's always been previously. And I think, I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again. I love policy and I'm a total nerd, and I am not a representation of the average voter because this is what I do for a living. And like most people are not, reading bills on a daily basis and thinking about public policy. Like they're going to their job and they're trying to think about what kid has soccer practice tonight? When does school start? Do we have all of our school supplies? Christmas is 4 months away. We got to start thinking about that and say, like, they're not thinking about public policy. And that's where AFP is really trying to change the message, because all of those things that I just said, the school, Christmas is coming up, so we got to start saving groceries, school supplies, like public policy impacts all of that in a different way. And so that's where we're trying to drive the message of like, I don't want people to be obsessive and only think about public policy, because dealing with government isn't fun.
No, and that can be heavy.
Likes
I
that,
get it.
But I want people to just think twice when they're checking out at the grocery store or when they're buying their kids school supplies. I saw somewhere that the average person is going to be spending $800 per kid for back to school this year. $800 per kid.
What? Well, I don't think we've started shopping. So that's fine. I have to go to the bank this afternoon anyway, so I'll just take out a loan.
Yeah, school
Holy
supply
cow.
loan, and then your grocery loan, and then your utility bill loan.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Speaking of policy, there's a person that I just absolutely loved. I usually don't find like a candidate for something and I'm all in. There's a lot that I like. I mean, Romaine Quinn, he's great on so many levels. But I'm talking like I'm all in. He's never won anything yet. But there's one person, and I'm sure you're familiar with him. But that was Will Martin. Will Martin's legit. I loved that guy. And I can't remember, what was he running for? Was it lieutenant governor or senate? I think it was lieutenant governor. Oh, my goodness. That dude, all he talked about, policy. That was it. Policy and issues. Nothing else. Just policy. I love that guy. What happened to him? Do you know?
He's working around in the movement still.
I love that guy.
I think he's doing a radio show in Milwaukee, actually.
What?
So you guys should connect.
Oh, we totally have to.
That'd be awesome.
I'm writing that down
I
right
appreciated that about him too. And he was another one, like Will is a very authentic person. And I appreciate that about politics. Like when politicians can remain authentic, and it's, especially here in Wisconsin, I think a lot of us can see through the BS.
Well, we can. Like, we don't like canned speeches up here. We don't like negative ads up here. It doesn't play. Like, even if you love your guy and they send out a negative ad against someone else, it's, yep, my opinion, you just went down. Like, it just doesn't work. What works in Jefferson County, I promise you, does not work in Barron, Burnett, Polk, Rusk, Sawyer, and Washburn County. It just doesn't. It's so weird. That stuff doesn't play. We like nice people. And just be you. Be real. Like, I can disagree with you. Fine. But I want to know that where you genuinely stand on something. That's it. Like, we can respect that. We're not going to vote for you, but we respect you for it.
Right? That's what we talked about at the beginning. Like, people should disagree. If we all agreed on everything, how boring would that be? Like, just be authentic and be willing to stand up for what you believe in, but also be willing to listen to other people. And there's nothing wrong with changing your mind every once in a while.
I agree.
And considering
100%.
other opinions.
I agree.
That shows growth. So,
all right. Well, we're up against our time here in about a minute or two. What do you have going on this week? What do you? You're not going to be on or maybe you are going where it's going this afternoon, the bus tour.
Up to Sheboygan. I'll be there this afternoon.
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
My goodness. So, what are you doing after the show? What are your plans this week? Anything coming up?
Oh, well, if your listeners have not gotten enough of me, I am doing another debate panel at 11:30 that they can stream on wispolitics.com. So
what?
If anyone is like, wow, that Megan did so good, I want to hear more of what she has to say.
Well, that's literally me. At 11:30, you said?
Yeah, it's at 11:30. I can send you the link.
11:30 at wispolitics.com. I go there every morning. They put up a lot of good stuff. And who sits on a panel? What does this look like?
Me, State Senator Julian Bradley, who's from the southern Milwaukee suburbs.
Yep, I know him.
And then Charles Franklin, who runs the Marquette Law Poll. Craig Gilbert, who's a former Journal Sentinel reporter, and Scott Jensen, who's a former political operative and former speaker.
Okay.
So, and
So
me.
it's the five of you, I think, if I
Mhm.
counted correctly. And what does this look like? What do you do? It's just like a round table, or is there like a moderator and they ask a question and all? It's almost like not a debate, but a moderator is asking a question and then each of you give an answer. I mean, what does this look like?
I think so. I'll let you know after. I mean, tune in and you can
We'll
find
find
out
out
with me
We'll find out at 11:30.
at 11:30 because
On
I don't want
Wisconsin.
to spoil it.
Okay.
Big surprise.
All right. Megan, thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure that you wanted to say or talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I can't believe our 45 minutes is up already.
It
This was a
flies
blast.
by.
Thanks for
I know.
having me.
Of course. And now we can have you on more because now we've gotten to know you. Ideally, we should have had 45 minutes of who's Megan Novak. But,
Megan.
yeah, who's Megan? Who really is?
We'll do
Megan
the
tick?
therapy session next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. You're welcome on anytime.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Special thank you to Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin State Director Megan Novak for taking time to come on for a chat on the show today. I will see you right back here on Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. And remember, 1 week from today, 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn will be joining us for his monthly chat with us. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, saying thank you for watching and have a blessed day.